And then I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, could everybody see hopefully everybody can see my screen. Okay, Paul's nodding his head, so that's good. All right, well, let me kick things off here and let's get started. So, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining today. We really appreciate it. It's kind of the first time we've ever really done anything like this at the CSI level, kind of in a virtual session like this, sort of a master class. So we're quite excited to see how it goes and how many people turn out. There seem to be a lot of interest in advance, which is great. Um, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about today? So we have a few things. Obviously, we're going to get through. Obviously, the course is artificial intelligence and the use of AI. So I'm going to go through a bit of an introduction first. Is going to be the first way we're going to start, and then I'm going to go through some objectives of the masterclass, what we're hoping to achieve, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce our first instructor, Paul Cirstean. Again, both Paul and Rich Swier, the other person that's joining me up here. I'm the one that knows nothing about artificial intelligence. I'm at, like, call it, let's say, a 1 out of 10. Paul and Rich are at a 10 out of 10. These are global experts. Now, Paul's shaking his head. I can tell you that Paul is certainly a 10 out of 10, as is Rich. These are global experts within Constellation who are about as plugged into artificial intelligence as anybody. So frankly, we're really lucky to have them, as part of the Constellation team. And we're really lucky to have them joining us here today, because again, my knowledge on AI is very limited. But Paul and Rich, it's a totally different ball game. So I'm going to introduce both of those. We're going to then go through, and we're going to open it up for Q&A. Now, a couple of things here is just in terms of time. I know we've got 90 minutes. I can pretty much guarantee in advance that we're going to go through that 90 minutes. I'll be shocked if we're actually going to be able to get through this deck in 90 minutes. So if you have to drop off, again, we totally understand. We're going to be tape recording the entire session. So I will have it up on the ACC site shortly after our call. And as well as some of the groups have actually requested copies of the Zoom session. And I'll be providing copies to, again, whoever would like it. So again, if you have to drop off, we totally understand. We think it's better to probably go over as opposed to trying to cut it short. But again, you're not gonna miss anything. So the first thing I want to touch on, again, what I'm hoping people get out of this is you learn a little bit about AI, and hopefully you walk away with some practical tips and guidance on how to use it. Now, the first thing that I'm going to introduce, if you're a finance person out there and you've sat through my finance calls over the last, over the last like 4 or 5 years, you're probably thinking to yourself, how the heck did Scott put together this deck? Because the deck that I use for the global finance calls, is basically pure crap compared to this. And after I learned a little bit about AI, I found myself experimenting with Canva, which is Canva. Canva is effectively software as a service. Again, you log on, it's on the web, and it's used for putting together presentations. And let me tell you, it is amazing. If for me to put together this, all I did was put into a prompt box, I'd like to put together a deck on AI, out pops 20 templates, including one that looks like this. And in order to edit it and move things around and change the fonts, it is dead easy. Frankly, if I can do it, anybody can do it, because my creative skills are next to nil. So again, the first point I would make to the groups, write down Canva. They have a 30-day trial. Even the paid version, I think, is something like 20, 25 bucks a month. It's a drop in the bucket. For me, I will never be going back to PowerPoint. And again, if you're a finance person, what I'm hoping for is that your finance presentations are going to get a lot better going forward, because the game plan is certainly to use Canva. So what inspired the masterclass? Now, I got to give a shout out. I don't know if he's on the line here today or not, but I got to give a shout out to Daniel Chen. Daniel Chen works with Farley at head office in M&A. And Daniel Chen and I were having lunch one day, and he mentioned to me Masterclass. Now, Masterclass is a company, and I believe they're based in the US, and it's an online learning platform. And for about $200 a year, you get access to what's called all of their master classes. And they will bring in experts to come in and talk about various topics. In this case, they brought in 3 global experts to run a masterclass on Gen AI. Now, prior to taking this class, I have been really disappointed in the trainings and things like that I have done with respect to AI. I haven't found anything that I had found useful or helpful. I just, was maybe a little bit on Copilot on how to use prompts or something like that, but it wasn't good. And then I watched this masterclass, and it was amazing. Again, like 2.5, 3 hours of an amazing presentation on the power of artificial intelligence. So I took that and I said, what, can we reproduce something like that at Constellation? And that's where I tracked down our own AI experts, being Paul and Rich, who again I think are totally on par with the folks that actually ran the masterclass through this online platform. Because again, Paul and Rich are both global experts, and it's really, now we've got a course with, we've got 1,000 people on the line here that we're now going to try and reproduce something similar to that. So again, if you're looking for, if you have a business unit out there, does it make sense to have someone in the business unit pay $200 a year to get a subscription to Masterclass so that you can stay up to date on cutting edge technology or cutting edge trends? Again, to me, that's not a bad investment of time when you think about how expensive it is to run some of these conferences and stuff like that. So again, thank you, Daniel Chen, for introducing me to Masterclass. To me, $200 a year is pretty good in the grand scheme of things. And we're going to see coming out of this if it was worth it. Because if I didn't take that masterclass, I don't think we would be doing this. At least I wouldn't have thought to put this together, because I thought the Gen AI course was excellent. The other thing now you might be saying to yourself is like you might be, if you're a finance person, you probably know who I am. But there's a lot of non-finance people on the phone, and you might be thinking to yourself, like, who are any of these people? They might not even have known that, that CSI even exists as a head office. And you might not even know that we actually do anything to communicate out with the rest of the groups. So again, a quick intro. I'm part of a team of about 25 of us at head office. So head office does exist. Paul is part of Yonder. Rich is part of Rhea, which is again, both of those are Constellation companies. But Constellation does do certain events, such as this is the first of its kind. But we do what's called a CSI Chat podcast, where we bring in experts to talk about a variety of topics. You can find that on on Spotify, Apple, or whatever your favorite streaming platform is. We also do what's called CSI internal chats, where we sit down with executives at Constellation, and we kind of have, these off the cuff or these informal conversations where, again, many of these executives, I would say most of these executives, kind of share the ups and probably more fun, the downs of their career and their time at Constellation. Some of the stories that they have told are frankly hilarious. We've got the next one coming up is going to be with Damien, who's the CEO of Vela. And just to give everybody a little bit of insight into this one, Damien first came across into CSI about 10 years ago through the acquisition of Datamine. What I'm going to share with Damien and what we're going to talk about is the slide deck, or the particular slide, which talked about the view from CSI on Damien. So John Billowitz actually wrote the slide on his view on Damien's skill set at Constellation. And let me tell you, it was not a flattering review of Damien. And when I brought this up with Damien, I'm not even sure if he saw the slide prior to me sharing it with him about 2 months ago. And I asked him, I said, "Are you okay with me sharing?" He says, "Absolutely." So I'm going to share with you John's view, because frankly, the way it played out is John couldn't have been more wrong. Damien ultimately took over for John. But we're going to talk about John's view, and we're going to get Damien's perspective on it. So again, that's just one example of these sort of chats I think the group would find interesting. And if you're looking to get access to as well to either these chats or the CSI intranet site, don't hesitate to give me a call. So I just want to give people a little bit of background on this. And again, maybe this masterclass, we're kind of experimenting with this today. Maybe this turns into something that's more prevalent and more popular going forward. So next I wanted to touch on is, what are the objectives today? What am I hoping that everybody walks away from after listening to this masterclass? I'm hoping people walk away with three main objectives. Number one, I hope you increase your Rolodex at Constellation. You're going to get a chance to, again, meet Paul Cirstean. You're going to get a chance to meet Rich Swier. And those are two very, very good contacts for, frankly, everybody on the line to have at Constellation. You know, now Paul's probably sad that he's come across me, because now every time I have an AI question, I send Paul an email. And the reality is, when Paul responds back, I don't get an answer. I get an answer plus about 50%. He puts about 50% more of the stuff in there that I had never even thought before. And it's the same thing with Rich. When Rich started talking to me about AI agents, you start brainstorming about the number of use cases within Constellation, and it is plentiful, the number of use cases that exist within Constellation. So what I'm hoping for is that you get a chance to know Paul and Rich. The other thing with Paul is Paul actually chairs a global AI committee at Constellation Software. Now, as sad as this is going to sound, I didn't even know this committee even existed until about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, when I was having lunch with Farley, one of the other key guys at head office, and Farley was telling me about this. I didn't even know that even existed, that there was a global AI committee. So again, I'm hoping now, by listening to this, you'll have two contacts you can reach out to who might be able to point you in the right direction on AI. Second objective is, I'm hoping people will learn something with respect to AI. Paul is going to talk a little bit about how you can leverage AI both at work and at home in your personal life. And then Rich is going to talk about how to leverage AI agents and the number of use cases that exist within AI agents. We have already started one from a finance perspective on how to use an AI agent when it comes to our accounting policies. So I'm hoping that you walk away with something that's going to help you, either from a work or from a personal perspective. The third objective that I'm hoping people walk away from, even if you sit through this whole course and you say, Scott, I didn't learn anything. There's nothing I was able to walk away from that I'm going to be able to apply. Hopefully, at a minimum, what we'll be able to show you is some things that are maybe you can't apply, but are pretty freaking cool. And hopefully what you walk away from is thinking to yourself, you know what? It probably makes sense for me to invest some of my L&D time, my learning and development, into artificial intelligence. Because is AI going to replace a human being? I don't think so. At least in my lifetime, it's probably not going to replace humans. Is it going to supplement us all in how we do our jobs? The answer to that question, I think, is absolutely yes. We are going to be able to do our jobs much more efficiently and effectively. Just take something as simple as email. 30 years ago, we didn't have email in work. Just think about how much easier our work life is now through the use of email. Those that have been around long enough, like me, remember old fax machines where if we wanted to send documents, we had to load it up to that screaming fax machine. That was a royal pain. Those are gone. AI is going to have a similar type of impact on the workforce. It's going to be different, but it's going to be able to help everybody. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be better off to get on the curve and to learn about AI and learn how it can help you. You'll be better off doing that as opposed to being left behind. So maybe coming out of this course, even if you were to say to yourself, hey, I didn't learn jack, I didn't learn anything. Maybe what you take then is you say, you know what, maybe I bring in a speaker in my local jurisdiction to talk about AI. Maybe I take a course on AI in terms of how I can learn it to supplement my own job. Maybe I go on YouTube and just watch some random videos on AI. All I'm saying is that I hope what people learn is that it stems you or encourages you to, get outside of your comfort zone and learn about AI, because it is coming. It is going to impact everybody's job. And you are going to be far better off if you embrace the change than if you resist the change. So again, to me, those are the those are the three objectives coming out of this call. Okay. So first thing I'm going to teach, or I'm going to show everybody here, is how did, again, a technical accountant with basically no creative skills come up with this kick-ass logo. Okay. Well, I think it's kick-ass logo. Maybe people don't. Maybe everyone doesn't think that. So here's how I did it. I'm showing it on the screen here. Now, if you roll back the clock 30 years ago and I wanted to create a logo like that, I probably would have had to pay, $50,000 to some, creative agency in order to create it. Now, if I paid $50,000, I'd probably be running into some issues right now, because Jamal might be watching this right now. And Jamal, just to be clear, I did not pay $50,000 in order to create that logo. So you can stop drafting my termination papers. There's no need to do that. I did not do that. What I did is I created the logo using Copilot. And as you can see on the screen here, you can actually create some pretty good looking logos in Copilot in about 30-35 seconds. Now, one of the things that a couple things you're going to note from these logos. Number one, again, my view on these is they all look pretty damn good. I did give it some prompting instructions in terms of colors, and I wanted it to show constellations and things like that to give it a bit of a spacey theme. But if you notice, if you pay a little bit more attention to it, what you're going to see is that there is spelling errors in every single one of these logos. Every single one of these logos actually has a spelling error. So I actually can't use any of these logos unless I'm going to go in and edit it, which basically I can't do because, again, my creative skills are at a zero. So I'm not going to really be able to edit this through some sort of a program. I'm going to have to work on my prompting and redo it again. So what do you take from that? Number one, for 30 seconds, that's pretty impressive in my mind in terms of what AI is put together. However, it's not perfect. There's spelling errors. And I would say when I was playing around with this, in about 50% of the use cases or 50% of the outputs, there were spelling errors that were coming out of this. And this is where you go back to say, look, is AI going to be able to replace humans? Not yet. It's not going to be able to. There needs to be a human who actually looks at those four logos and actually says, man, there's spelling errors in each one of those. I can't actually use any of those. So now I need to go back and reprompt it and get it to produce something better. And that's how I eventually landed on the logo that I'm using. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce Paul. Okay. So Paul is going to be instructor number one. Rich is going to come later. We're going to start with Paul. As I mentioned earlier, Paul is the head of innovation at Yonder. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read Paul's bio. Okay, I've got Paul's bio. It's actually a lengthy bio. Paul's got a lot of experience. I've got his bio right here. Okay. Now, the problem is I'm getting older and I can't see these things very much. Just give me one second here. Let me get my reading glasses. See if this is better. This is embarrassing. I still can barely read this thing. You know what? There has got to be a better way to introduce Paul than trying to read off this piece of paper. Okay. I'm involved in a masterclass here on artificial intelligence, and I'm trying to read Paul's bio off a piece of paper. How backwards thinking is that? So we're not going to read Paul's bio off a piece of paper. That's boring. Okay. I think what we need to do is we need to do something a little bit more interesting and a little bit more fun. So I think about my own background. I took grade 9 music. Okay. I capped out at grade 9. I pulled about a 65% in grade 9 music, which was probably one of the lowest marks in the entire class. Okay. So grade 9 music, got a 65. And just so everybody knows is that I could play a mean wooden box. Okay. In grade 9, that 65 was completely driven by my skill playing a wooden box. So what if I took my incredible music skill? Okay. Like that is, again, grade 9 music, 65%. And my skill set is limited to a wooden box. That is what I'm an expert on. What if I took that and paired it up with AI and trying to actually produce a song about Paul? I think that would be a much more interesting way to introduce Paul to the group, as opposed to trying to read from some piece of paper. that even with my reading glasses, I can't even read. I think that would be a fun way to introduce Paul. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to serenade Paul with a song. Okay. Now, for everybody listening on the phone, Paul is smiling because, and Rich is probably sitting there saying, is it too late to back out? And Rich, just so you know, it is too late to back out. We are live, we are going, nobody's backing out at this point. But just so everybody knows, I did not share these songs in advance with Paul and Rich. We did a walkthrough of this deck on Tuesday, and I specifically told them, I am not sharing these songs in advance, okay? That is not happening. So you're gonna have to be surprised. So Paul and Rich are gonna both see these songs at the same time as the audience themselves. Now, for everybody, so what I would encourage everybody to do is put on their headphones. We played a song at the finance presentation that I did about 2 months ago. Now, again, what we need to do here is get into the mood of things. Again, we're going into a concert setting here. So what I've got is I've got a couple of props that I'm going to leverage. Number one is I've got my nice AI hat. Okay, so I'm going to put on my hat. That is prompt number one. Same thing I did a month and a half ago or 2 months ago with our finance call. Now I've got my glasses. Okay, again, we're going all in here for I ditched my reading glasses. We got my concert glasses on here. These, I think these are at least 25 cents at Walmart. Okay, now, so we're all set, almost. Now, if you remember in the finance call, okay, what I did is I had to play an air guitar. That was not ideal. Okay, the air guitar was not ideal. That was not an ideal selection. So what I actually did is I invested in a real guitar, because in the case of Paul's song especially, there are some serious guitar solos that I got to get right. So I've now got my guitar as well. Okay, I've got my beautiful guitar that is all set. So hat, glasses, guitar. I think now I am ready to serenade Paul with a song that, again, he has not heard in advance. Now, what is the name of the song? It is called A Pioneer So Bright. And just so people, just to recap, this song was generated 100% through artificial intelligence, okay? My music skills are limited to grade 9 and a wooden box. And take that and you couple it up with artificial intelligence, this is what we get with the output. So Paul, here is the song for you, my friend. A Pioneer So Bright. As you mentioned, a big guitar solo at the outset.
From the early days of typing, he found his way. Paul Cirstean, a name that's here to stay. With a passion for AI and a vision so clear, he's been shaping the future year after year. Paul Cirstean, a pioneer so bright. In the world of tech, he's a guiding light. From humble beginnings to leading the way, his story inspires us every day. With a mind for innovation, he took the lead, turning dreams into reality, planting the seed at Constellation Software. He found his place, driving AI forward, setting the pace. Paul Cirstean, a pioneer so bright. In the world of tech, he's a guiding light. From humble beginnings to leading the way, his story inspires us every day. Challenges and triumphs, he's always there. With a vision for the future and a heart that cares. From algorithms to data streams, he's seen it all in the realm of AI. He stands tall. Paul Cirstean, a pioneer so bright. In the world of tech, he's a guiding light. From humble beginnings to leading the way, his story inspires us every day. So here's a Paul with his brilliant mind. In the world of AI, he's one of a kind. With Constellation Software, the future's bright, leading us all into the light.
100% through artificial intelligence. And I don't know what your views are on that, but again, for somebody with a grade 9 music background, I'd say these AI tools are rather powerful. Now, again, Rich, just so you know, it is too late to back out. There's going to be a song coming from you as well. And then what we've also got, if you stick around at the end, I'm going to show people how to do it at the end. And we're going to close out the session with a song about Constellation software. I'm sure Mark Leonard's going to be really happy that I chose a European dance club genre for the CSI song. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Paul, and he's going to start off his portion of the session in terms of going through how to leverage AI at work and at home.
Thank you, Scott. I have no idea how to follow that. I think I definitely feel overhyped, just like generative AI. So maybe we kind of have that in common. But really, Scott, thank you for the kind word in the introduction. I'm genuinely grateful to be here with you today. I think within CSI, there are so many passionate and bright folks. And for me to kind of be here and share this information, it's definitely a pleasure. And today I want to share with you some AI use cases, mainly targeted at finance, M&A, and management. Now, if we just read the headlines around generative AI, by the way, let me see that I've shared with audio as well. There we go. I'm good. If you just read the headlines around generative AI, it seems that this technology can do pretty much anything, and it's going to take all of our jobs. This is what I call the AI promised land. We even have unicorns in the promised land, which are things like AGI, artificial general intelligence, this type of systems that are better to reason and think than any of us as humans. So clearly, there is a lot of hype and inflated expectations around generative AI. You can do some interesting things with this technology, like you can take this unicorn and inflate it like that. You can do that with a model called Pika 1.5. But if you want to apply this technology in your professional life and in your day-to-day life, what I found is that the reality land looks a bit different. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a couple of clear use cases to leverage generative AI in the professional and in your personal lives. But the use cases are nowhere near as impressive as what we see in the headlines or what companies are promising us. Today, for the next 30, 40 minutes, I want to mainly focus on the AI reality land. What are the practical use cases and applications for generative AI? Things that we can use as of today to make our work better and to work faster. Now, I want to start with a warning sign and just a bit focus on some security and compliance risks that I think we should be aware of that are surrounding generative AI. We could speak 1 hour just on this topic, but today I want to share with you just a couple of key points that I think are important to consider. First, you can only lose your data once, so please make sure that you read the fine print whenever you're choosing a generative AI tool. Secondly, these models are non-deterministic by nature, and they can produce mistakes, as also Scott showed earlier. So really think of these systems as a junior assistant rather than something that you take for granted, and always validate the output. Third, many solutions, including paid subscriptions like ChatGPT Plus, will use your data, your prompts, and the results to improve their models and to retrain their solutions. Make sure that you read the terms and conditions and that you are comfortable with what the company is doing with your data. Last but not least, please make sure that you read and comply with the legal requirements, things like the European EU Act in Europe, or with your operating group policies surrounding generative AI. Now that we kind of got that out of the way, let's look at what are some of the practical applications that we can use. And I've divided the opportunity space on 2 axes. First, we have the spectrum of professional to personal. And then we have the second axis, which is productivity and all towards to creativity. So in the first quadrant, professional use cases for productivity, I suggest you kind of dip your toes into AI with simple things like email drafting, document summarization. You can use things like GitHub, like Copilot, Microsoft Copilot for Teams to automatically take notes and actions from meetings. AI can work great as a research assistant. And also there are some interesting models around text to audio. Also on the professional side, if we are to look at how can we boost our creativity, there are some interesting use cases around logo generation, as Scott shown, image visual effects, what I shown with inflating objects in images, podcast generation, event marketing, event planning and marketing. And you can even use these tools as kind of a sparring partner when you have a tough leadership challenge. And I'm going to show that a bit later. Moving to the personal side, I think there are some really interesting use cases in terms of using AI as a travel guide, as your fitness assistant. If your car breaks down or if you have a problem with your car, instead of opening the car's manual, you can actually use some of these AI tools to get to the answers faster. Some of my colleagues which have kids which are older are using AI tools for them as parents as helpers to their kids' math homework. So you're not giving the AI model to your kid, but rather you as a parent, you are kind of getting insights on how to help your kid. And one of my colleagues was actually convinced to pay for ChatGPT Premium after he used it to get his money back after an airline company lost his luggage. He was having this email exchange with this airline, and he started to use ChatGPT to generate the responses back, and they were impressively efficient. And looking at the personal and creativity side of things, again, birthday card image generation, song generation, as Scott shown, you can generate audio stories, and even you can use it to learn new hobbies. You can prompt it to say, hey, I want to learn this and I have this much time. Can you recommend some steps or some resources? Now, obviously, these are quite a few use cases, and I'm sure that if you start using AI, you're quickly gonna find new use cases even more relevant to your own processes. But because I only have 30 minutes in my slot, there is no way that I can showcase all of these. So I'm going to focus on a subset of these, some of the ones I've highlighted. And also, I want to bring attention to some malicious use cases that can be used by bad actors. And I think we as professionals, we need to be aware of and to need to protect against that. Now, let's start with a simple but useful use case. If you have Microsoft Copilot, you can use it in OneDrive. Imagine you receive 100 CVs in PDFs. And instead of going through each of them and kind of extracting key information to have a summary of all the candidates, you can use Copilot for that. And you can say, create a table with the following details: name, experience, and skills. Sort the table in the order of years of experience. And again, Copilot will actually go through each of these PDFs, and extract the key information and create the table for you. Again, it's not going to be a life changer, but it's a small time saver that can, all of these small time savers can stack up. And once you embed this into your workflow, you can realize that you can actually gain quite a bit of efficiency. Also, to share a personal example where I found AI to be quite useful, all of us that are responsible for leading teams often have to face challenging situations with managing our colleagues. And I think to a certain degree, AI can help with that. AI can be sort of can be sort of a leadership coach with kind of the right quotes around it. And basically, when I have a more nuanced question, I like to use two tools, ChatGPT and Claude. And the prompt I had here is, I have a colleague, let's call him John. He's very assertive and often too harsh when giving feedback to junior developers. I think he's well-intended and his feedback is correct, but how he presents the feedback often creates tension and unnecessary pressure, demotivating some of the developers. How should I give feedback? And I asked this question to both models. And they're not rocket science. They're not like something that I haven't heard before, but they're a great reminder of some of the steps that I should take before preparing for this meeting. So things like prepare your feedback, choose a good time and place, frame with positives. John, I see that you are interested in helping the team improve. Focus on observations, not judgments. Avoid phrases like "you're too harsh." Explain the impact. Some junior developers feel a bit discouraged after the feedback sessions. Encourage empathy and self-reflection. Things like, I think your expertise would resonate even more if the feedback could feel more like guidance rather than critique. Offer to help and end with support. And Claude is coming up with kind of some similar things, but from a slightly different angle. Start with positive. Frame the concern in terms of effectiveness, use specific examples, and so on. And you can even take this further. If you have like a favorite author around leadership, you can say, how would Patrick Lencioni approach this situation? And if you read Patrick Lencioni's books, these models will come up with analogies and kind of pointers based on the concepts in the book to help you approach this situation. So in this case, it's things like start with building trust, encourage open dialogue and productive conflict. So really give this a try whenever you kind of have a difficult situation as a leader. And I'm sure you're going to be surprised just how good the results are. Third, these systems are also quite good at data understanding, especially for simple pieces of data. Here I have an image of a table showing how different assets evolved over time relative to inflation. So if I open this image, again, this is a PNG, and I ask first ChatGPT to convert this to a table. Really what I'm trying to understand is how should I invest in different assets depending on inflation? And notice that when I ask this, ChatGPT doesn't just predict the answer, it runs Python code to give me kind of the answer. So first it creates this interactive table. I can select a column. I can say what is the average for this column. And again, it doesn't make a prediction, it runs Python code to give me the correct answer. Then I take it further and I say plot all the values on a line chart. I'm just going to scrub to this with vibrant colors. I can download this chart, I can change the colors, and I can go even further and I can say plot the correlation score between the columns on a matrix. Some of you in the finance team, I'm sure you're familiar with correlation matrices. So again, it runs Python code to generate this visualization. And in this case, I see the color coding for the correlation, but I don't actually see the correlation score. So what I do is I say add the correlation score on the boxes in the matrix. And again, it goes through the process again. And then I can clearly see that inflation is highly correlated with real estate, which is to be expected. I can see that bonds is highly correlated with cash and so on. So again, with a couple of prompts and without any kind of data analytics knowledge or tools, I was able to find some interesting results. Now, whenever we interact with these models and we ask them to do things, our queries are called prompts. And there is a whole discussion that kind of a lengthy discussion that we can have around prompting and what are the best prompting techniques out there. I'm not going to be able to cover this in the short segment that I have today, but if you're interested to kind of learn more about this and to improve the results that you're getting, I highly encourage you to take a look at this free prompting guide from Google. You can find it online. It covers prompts and techniques for multiple departments and professionals. So for communications, for customer service, for executives, for marketing, sales, project management, and so on. And it even comes with like examples of use cases. So for a chief marketing officer, it comes up with examples like generate a list of 4 relevant emerging thought leadership blog posts, ideas for company X based on trending topics. Or you can, for social media, it comes up with ideas like create a social media post promoting our upcoming event and so on. So you can find this online, Prompting Guide 101 from Google. If you cannot find it, drop me a message and I'm glad to share it with you. Now, I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I especially like to listen when I'm traveling or driving, but often some of the material, some of the articles or some of the books that I'm trying to read are not available in audio format. AI can help with that. Using the free Reader app from 11 Labs, which is available on iOS and Android, I can take any document or website or article and I can listen to it. This is how it works. After we install the app on iOS, this is an article really interesting from Sequoia, the 600 billion, the AI 600 billion question. You press the share button, you have the Reader app in there, you press it, and then you're going to be able to listen to that article.
The AI bubble is reaching a tipping point. Navigating what comes next will be essential. In September 2023, I published AI's $200 billion.
So it goes on like that for the full article. I often use this like on a weekly basis. Give it a try, and especially if you enjoy listening to books or to articles, this is quite great for that. Now, this technology, as you can imagine, is quite powerful. So manipulating voices and converting text to voices. And you can easily imagine how this type of technology can also be used to cause harm or by bad actors. And to kind of show and bring a bit of light to this, I've studied a couple of interesting papers which clearly argue that phishing campaigns, so phishing campaigns are those malicious emails that in the past used to have spelling errors in them. Now they're generated with AI and they're quite convincing. And quite a few studies show that phishing campaigns are way more efficient when generative AI is used to create those campaigns. And something maybe even more interesting, according to a recent report, a finance worker was convinced using deepfakes to pay $25 million to a group of hackers. Imagine having a Teams call with your VP of finance, like Scott, and he asks you to make a payment to a vendor. Well, kind of that whole conversation and that whole interaction would be with a deepfake of Scott. And again, this might sound like science fiction, like this would never happen in CSI. This is like you need to be really advanced to create something like this. But that's really not the case. Here is a deepfake of Scott. I'm going to play it and take a listen.
I am Scott's evil twin AI avatar. However, I just have one question. Why is Scott involved in an AI masterclass when he knows nothing about artificial intelligence? In fact, I thought his skill set was limited to preferred shares, non-controlling interest, and reconciling intercompany. Scott, why don't you take your Pacioli cup, go back to your windowless basement office with your stack of books, and serve us up another CSI chat? By the way, how did you come up with the name CSI chat? My son's grade 5 class could do better than that.
So what's both impressive,
And just for the record, Paul, like I know that's supposed to like look like me, but that guy sounds like a total a-hole. I did share this with my wife and my son just to try and get a little bit of feedback on this. What they had said was the video is pretty much bang on. The voice is a little bit off, but everything else is pretty much 100% accurate. So I'll let the 1,000 people here on the line be the judge, but just for the record, that guy sounds like a total a-hole and nothing like me at all. Okay, just to be clear. Okay, just wanted to state that this is getting recorded. I just wanted to state that for the record. Okay, and I'm sure all the finance people on the line totally agree with me 100%.
As we're on the record, I also want to state that actually Scott created this. So I think that's both impressive and scary. He created this using HeyGen and just a bit of instructions. So I think we should definitely be aware of kind of the opportunities and all of these interesting use cases that AI enables. But at the same time, I think we should be aware and cognizant of the risks that come packaged with this technology. And Scott, I must say, I was genuinely surprised by your sense of humor. I remember when we had our first call, you have this impressive title and that intimidating stack of books next to you. And I had no idea that you are as fun as you are. And preparing this session has been a blast. So thank you for playing along and for being willing to kind of integrate a bit of
Well,
deep into this.
here's the truth of it, Paul, is that for all the finance people on the line, they're saying, what jokes are you referring to? Because everything he just said was pretty much bang on. So, but anyway, it has been, I hope people are, again, you look at what Paul's going through, both Paul, and just to give people some perspective as well, Paul and Rich have been working on their decks for about, a little over a month. Trying to get ready for this session. The guys have put in a lot of time and effort into putting together these decks, knowing but we get a good turnout. And again, like just starting with Paul's stuff, it's really, really good. I sat through it on Tuesday already. This is the second time I'm seeing it, and I'm still taking down notes. And again, we'll get to Rich in a second, but Paul, the stuff is excellent. Again, and again, for everybody on the line, Paul and Rich didn't just put this up in 5 minutes. This has been a month working on this stuff, trying to deliver something of value to the group.
Yeah, appreciate that. Now, switching gears to the personal side and some use cases in which you can use AI in your day-to-day life. First, AI can be great as a travel companion. I'm located in Cluj-Napoca, Romania, and let's kickstart this. So what you can do with AI is you can you can ask, what statue is this? You can pick up your phone, take a picture. This statue is actually in the city center of Cluj-Napoca, and you can ask ChatGPT some more details about this. Again, I haven't shared where I'm located. ChatGPT doesn't have access to my location. Just on this image alone, it's able to pick up the fact that this is a statue of Matthias Corvinus, a monument located in Cluj-Napoca. And then I can go do follow-up questions. Why was he famous? And I can get some interesting details. The fact that he had military achievements, Renaissance, justice and reform, cultural legacy, and so on. The second use case, as I mentioned earlier, AI can be quite good at doing car diagnostics. So if you have a problem with your car, you get like a weird warning light into your dashboard. You can take a screenshot of that warning light, and you can ask ChatGPT. So again, I could have opened the car manual and went through it and kind of tried to find out what those lights are. But here, just with a picture, I'm learning a lot about the battery warning light, the engine light, the bulb warning light, and what are some of the recommendations and things I can do to address those. Third, these systems are quite impressive at object recognition. I have a 3-year-old son, and a couple of weeks ago, he came to me with a toy figurine and asked me, what type of dinosaur is that? I had no idea. So I took a picture and I asked ChatGPT, what type of dinosaur is this? And immediately I learned that dinosaur appears to be a Triceratops. And then I went further and I said, draw a picture of it. First, it came up with this skeleton kind of image. For my 3-year-old, I think he might have gotten nightmares if I would have shown him this. So I took one further and I said, draw a picture of a live one. And again, then it comes up with a much more 3-year-old friendly one. And my kid was actually quite impressed when he saw this. And also, one of the things which I find quite amazing, often my son asks me to come up with these weird crossover stories. Like, Dad, can you tell me a story about Mickey Mouse playing table tennis with a dinosaur or things like that? And it's always an interesting mental challenge to come up with these stories. But ChatGPT is quite impressive at generating stories based on a prompt. Here is just one example. This is using the advanced voice capability, which was announced a couple of months ago. Tell a kid story about a warrior named Matthias. His horse suddenly fell ill during their journey. Along the way, they met a friendly triceratops. Use appropriate sounds.
Once upon a time, brave warrior Matthias was journeying through the mountains on his loyal horse, Thunder. Suddenly, Thunder began to slow, his head drooping and hooves dragging. Matthias was worried. While looking for help, they met a friendly triceratops named Trixie. Trixie examined Thunder and said, "He's eaten some bad berries, but don't worry, I know just the remedy."
And it goes on like that. Spoiler alert, the horse is just fine. He didn't die. But again, it's a really great way. And if you haven't tried ChatGPT with advanced voice, give it a try. Some of my colleagues are using it when they have like an interview with someone and they want to kind of brainstorm what questions to ask, how to approach different things. You just literally talk with it. You can ask it to quiz you on things. Imagine you have like you want to prepare for something and you want to know how good you are at certain things. You can open this and you can ask it to quiz you on certain topics to see how well you are prepared for it. So give it a try. It's quite impressive. Switching gears back to the professional side, here is quite a simple solution that we built at Yonder for ourselves. I really think that in a couple of years and in a couple of months even, every company is gonna have something like this. So this is our Yonder Copilot. You can edit in Teams as an app, and we designed this for colleagues which are new in Yonder. So you can say, hey, and it says, how can I help you? How do I take medical leave? How is my performance reviewed? Basically, new colleagues can ask questions about our processes and about our company. And obviously, this information is sitting somewhere in like a document management system, but no one is actually going and reading those. So, or how do I book a meeting room? And again, you're getting all the right information. I feel sick. How can I take medical leave? I really think that in a short amount of time, most companies are going to have something like this built in their organization. Next, I want to show off two use cases where AI can work great as a research assistant. ChatGPT recently announced their web search capabilities. For certain queries, it works much better than Google. So for example, on this one, I say, what is the investment strategy of CSI? I enable the search capability, and ChatGPT goes on the web and picks up these things. It says part of the strategy is targeted acquisitions, decentralized management, long-term ownership. I also see the links where the sources where it got that information from. And if I ask the same question on Google, basically I get like a short summary at the top, which is quite basic. And then I get a lot of blue links that I need to look through. If I open the first one, it takes me to the conclusions. That's not very useful. I don't have a lot of context. Again, the quality of the results is for certain use cases is much better with a tool like ChatGPT. Or if you want to try something similar, I recommend Perplexity. It's a tool which is designed kind of for the web querying with AI type of use cases. And the second and the last use case that I want to share with you today is using a tool called Notebook LLM. This is powered by Google. It's free. And again, I find myself using it quite often. What you're seeing here is the TSS website where they list all the recent acquisitions. All acquisitions have their press release, so kind of a large piece of text with details about that company and that acquisition. I can see that in this case, the managing director of the name of the managing director of Bypass, and basically here TSS lists all of their acquisitions. If I go back to Notebook LLM, I can input here all the sources, basically the links to the TSS website. After that, I'm going to see a summary of what I've added as sources. And then I can actually ask questions. So I can say, create a table showing the name of the company, when it was founded, the country of origin, and when it was acquired by TSS. And again, it takes all that information from those websites, those press releases, and it compiles a list with references, so with sources to all the information that I can verify, I can double check if I want. And again, this in some use cases this really saves me minutes, tens of minutes to hours. Or I could say, who is the managing director of Bypass? And again, on one of those sources, it was that reference. Or what companies are in the education vertical. And as you saw, the information is not really structured in those press articles. It's like quite written in free form. And I can take it even further, and I can generate a podcast based on this information.
All right, so you're ready for this. You sent over like a whole stack of press releases about this company, Total Specific Solutions, TSS.
Yeah.
At first glance, I was like, okay, corporate acquisitions, how interesting can this be? But then I started looking into it, and it's actually way more fascinating than it sounds.
Yeah, it really is.
What's so interesting is that each one of these acquisitions kind of tells a story about a bigger trend, and that's vertical market software, VMS.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking software that's laser focused on a specific industry.
Right. Yeah.
Like a bespoke suit for a very particular need.
Yeah, and that's where TSS comes in.
Okay.
They're a European software conglomerate, but they're not like these big tech giants just gobbling everything up.
Right.
They're all about VMS.
Yeah.
They have this really unique philosophy, like a buy and hold forever.
Okay, see, that's what really got me, that buy and hold forever.
So again, the podcast is 23 minutes. Often when I have like an article or a long document with a lot of details, I like to dump it into Notebook LM and use it to generate a podcast. And it's like having two experts talking on top of that document. And again, I'm able to kind of find a lot of interesting insights. It's way easier to digest. Again, give this a try. It's free. I'm sure you're going to be quite impressed with how well it works. Now, as we've seen, clearly there are some practical use cases to use generative AI in the reality land, both in our professional lives and in our personal lives. And I'm quite confident that like every 6 months, as these models get better and better, the patch of green grass that we see in this reality land desert will only grow larger. And please keep in mind when you're constantly reevaluating how you can use AI, kind of the 4 quadrants. Look for opportunities in the professional and productivity quadrant. Look for opportunities that boost your creativity, both in the professional life and in the personal life. Now, before I close, I want to briefly take you behind the scenes on how I generated these images. Obviously, they're AI generated. So in order to create the larger patch of green grass, I started from the first one, and I've said, add some more green grass to this image, keep it as much as possible to the original one. And the initial result that I got back was this. And for me, this is a great reminder that these tools, even though we're calling them artificial intelligence tools, in reality, they're more like intelligence augmentation tools. I think we should remember that it's up to us as humans to apply our intelligence, to validate, to improve the results. And we can use, and we should use these tools to augment our intelligence rather than thinking that they will replace our intelligence. Thank you a lot for listening. I'm going to hand it over to Scott to make the highly anticipated introduction of Reach. I'm curious how that will go. Thank you a lot for the opportunity.
That's great, Paul. No, that was a great presentation. I know that there's questions, obviously, that are coming up. The way we're going to approach it is we're going to leave the questions until the end. We're going to get through the material first, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. And again, between the 3 of us, we got time at the back end of our schedule to open it up. And if it goes over, it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's keep going now. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. All right, so now it's Rich's turn. So I had met Rich. Rich and I met actually not in an AI setting. We actually met in a finance setting. We were talking about some accounting issues with respect to his company and how to get the books. Just some stuff relating to a few transactions. And then what I did is I actually spent a little bit of time learning about Rich and his background. And he is a serial entrepreneur. He is the founder of Rhea. And again, this is a CSI company which focuses on the building of AI agents. And what Rich is going to get into, what I realized after talking to Rich about this, is that there is a million use cases on something like this within Constellation. One of the big issues within CSI is in a decentralized environment is the dissemination of information. That's a big issue in terms of trying to get information all the way down into the groups. It's a big challenge. You can use an AI agent in order to make this process a lot easier. So I'm not going to steal Rich's thunder. Rich is going to get into the AI agents. However, another thing I learned about Rich is that he is the co-host of the podcast called the AI Guys Pod. Now, Rich is the co-host. He is also joined by his partner in crime, Lee Dixon. Those are the two guys that run the podcast. And it is a really, really good podcast on AI. They just had a recent episode on how to leverage Copilot, for example. And I'm not sure if it's weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it is, but again, they're producing episodes on a regular basis on artificial intelligence. And I would highly encourage people to check that out because it is not industry specific. It's not role specific. They're covering a wide range of topics. Just to give you some perspective, I think Lee was mentioning the other day that they are closing in on 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is, the podcast hasn't even been in existence for a year. 100,000 is actually pretty impressive. That's probably about 100,000 more subscribers than I have for CSI Chat. Not that that's a good reference point, but just to give you some perspective on the popularity of the podcast, that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty sizable group. So I would encourage everybody to check this out. So what I thought would be fun is, well, let's write a song about Rich co-hosting this podcast called the AI Guys Pod. So what's the name of this song? This song is called Sharing AI's Light. Now, if you'll notice in here, going back to what Paul had said, the AI is not perfect. I'm going to have the lyrics, but you will see actually some errors in the lyrics. And I've left those in, part of it because frankly, I'm lazy and they're not that easy to fix. But what I've sold myself on is, again, it's a good lesson for the group. Don't just take AI, and just incorporate it. This should go through a review process. So I'm going to try and serenade Rich in the same way that I serenaded Paul. I've got my glasses, so I better get my glasses again. Again, if you're listening, turn up the volume. Got my glasses. We're getting in the mood. I can't forget, there is a little bit of guitar solo, so I can't forget my guitar. I got my guitar back. But Rich, this song is for you, my friend. I hope you like it. Sharing AI's Light. And as I mentioned at the top, Rich has not heard this song before. I did not share with him this song in advance, so he is hearing it at the same time as everybody else. So sharing AI's light, I hope everyone likes it.
On the sunny shores of Sarasota where dreams take flight, Rich Swier, the entrepreneur, shines so bright. With a mind for tech and a heart for the new, he co-hosts AI Guys, bringing insights to you. Rich Swier on the mic, sharing AI's light. With AI Guys, he makes the future bright. From real estate to tech, he's seeing it all, guiding us through AI, standing tall. From startups to success, he's paved the way. Emerging worlds of tech, day by day. science elites. In the podcast world, he plants the seeds. Rich Swier on the mic, sharing AI's light. With AI guys, he makes the future bright. From real estate to tech, he's seen it all. Guiding us through AI, standing tall. With every episode, he brings the news. Discussing AI trends day by day. With a background in computer science, he leads in leads. In the palm of AI, he wears the seeds. Rich Swier on the mic, sharing AI's light. With AI guys, he makes the future bright. From real estate to tech, he's seen it all. Guiding us through AI, standing tall. So here's the Rich with his brilliant mind. In the world of AI, he's one of a kind. With AI guys, the future's clear, leading us forward year after year.
All right. Well, Rich, I hope you like my song. Again, that is 100% AI generated. We switched up the genre on Rich as well. So it's the number of genres that are out there that you can make with this Suno tool is off the charts, like literally off the charts. It is thousands of genres you can put together. And again, if you stick around till the end, I'm going to show you the Constellation one that is going to be a little bit more unique. But check out AI Guys Pod. Very cool. Very, again, you're going to learn a lot about AI. And with that, I'll pass it over to Rich to go through AI agents.
Thanks, Scott. I love the music. So this is one of the most entertaining things I've been involved in quite some time. So hats off to you, man.
Oh, that's good. I think gotta have fun. We gotta have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So today I'm going to focus on showing you 4 use cases. We're going to get right down to business. My background, just to give you my perspective of CSI, they acquired my company a few years ago. So I was part of the CSI family. And then recently, through the excitement of AI over the last few years, which I've been involved in for almost 8 years, CSI decided to take a bet on me, and they invested in our company, Rhea. So we are still part of the CSI family, but we're part of the venture side. So we're excited to show you kind of what we've been working on, and more importantly, how you can actually use it inside of your business. Our big pitch is we make AI that works for you. Paul did an excellent job kind of showcasing the other use cases of AI. And so I'm sure many of you are sitting there, like in most businesses when we talk to, and kind of confused because there's so much going on in the AI space. It's not too dissimilar to when the internet started, right? Everybody was .com this, website that. And we're kind of going through that same revolution today. But I always like to think of AI in 3 categories. It just helps me kind of understand when you're looking at something, what is it really supposed to do? How's it supposed to help you in your day-to-day? And Paul just did an excellent job kind of talking mostly about AI tools and AI add-ons, which is a completely separate piece. And what we really do at Rhea is we focus on AI agents. And so to kind of level set this for everyone, if you're working on a tool like Microsoft Outlook or Excel or anything that you've already used in your past, like Photoshop, typically most of those apps are adding on AI to help use that app more in an easier fashion. Maybe it's helping you kind of shortcut some things, or even adding a little bit of functionality that makes it even cooler. And then AI tools are things that are very specific for the AI things, like Scott has clearly shown. Making music is an example of what he showed, or making that Hey Jin video earlier of the evil twin of Scott. So really what we're going to focus on is how do you put this to work inside of your business. And so we're going to demonstrate 2 of our core products that are part of our ecosystem. Rhea Chat, which is really the external facing part of our AI agent. This is where your customers, your vendors, your prospects can engage with your AI agent. And the right side, the co-pilot, is really for your internal team or your employees engaging with that same AI agent or any other AI agent that you deploy on our platform. And so I'm going to show you 4 use cases on how these kind of inter-exchange. And I think the most important kind of takeaway when you're talking about an AI agent is that it's really what it is. It's a go-between. So unlike kind of what you saw today, which is tools that are more, hey, I'm using this for my own personal use, AI agents are really great at being a go-between you and another party or you and another application. And of course, behind the scenes is our core bedrock product, which is our Launchpad. And what we've built with Launchpad, and this is what we've been working on for years, is making AI agents easy for anybody to deploy. So even somebody like Scott.
Like Scott, exactly right, Rich.
It took every
100%.
every ounce of
No.
I feel horrible for saying, but I had to.
No, it's
I had to join
100%
it.
true.
I had to join it on the roof.
Rich, if I can do it,
Yeah.
anybody can do it. Let's
All
call
right,
a spade
enough,
here. That
enough
is
of
100%
Scott
correct.
bashing. So this Launchpad is, it doesn't require code. You kind of go in, you're given instructions, and you say, I want you to perform this task, and I want you to do it in this way. And of course, you can connect it with your existing systems if that's required. But we're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to the use cases. So from first principles, we always started from this perspective. AI is meant to kind of permeate through your organization, and in some cases in very small ways, and in some cases in a very big way. And we're going to talk about both those in our use cases. So this really applies to anybody, whatever your role is within your company, whether you're on the operations side, marketing, AI is going to have an impact in some form or fashion, and it's going to permeate into the applications that you're using today. Or hopefully at some point you might be able to deploy an AI agent that automates tasks that can save you time and money. And so let's go ahead and kickstart with the first AI agent that we've deployed. And now these are real AI agents that we've deployed within the Constellation family. So these aren't just courteous demos. These are actually ones that have been deployed and working currently. So let me give you kind of before I go into the video, let me kind of give you an overlay of what this is. So when you think of Rhea or you think of an AI agent, it's really a go-between, right? It's a go-between a person and another person, or a person and an app, or even in some cases with autonomous agents, it can be between an app and an app. It could be done behind the scenes. But in this case study, we started with, this is a CSI company in the dealer group called Ideal, and they have existing support system. They use team support. They have existing videos, hundreds of them that are on this site called Wistia, and they have a ton of websites and a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. They've got all this data, which we'll just call their knowledge base, in all these third-party systems. So step one in deploying this solution is we put it all together and we trained an AI agent that understood this and could answer questions around it and could really have that conversation with anybody, whether it be for an internal support team that might be struggling and have a question and ask the AI agent to help them with a support ticket, or putting that out directly to the customer to be able to engage, whether it be through SMS, through email, or even live chat on their website. So let's go ahead and I'll walk you through this demo. So we're starting off with the perspective of I'm the support agent right now, and I've logged on to Rhea Copilot. And so I might get a ticket in from a customer, and I just don't know the answer. So in this case, the customer is asking me, hey, I've got a duplicate entry, of the same supplier. How do I handle it? So what the AI is doing, because it's been trained on all of this knowledge base, it's giving back a very clear instructional document or answer about how to go through and do it. And also gives you a link back to the source. So this allows, it makes it easier for the support person. They can just cut and paste that and put it into an email or get back and answer that question very easily. It also allows us to train the AI. And this is so important. And I'm going to be talking about this throughout the presentation. It is so important to have the person, the expert, the human, training the AI and saying, hey, that was actually a good answer. And when it's a bad answer, it can actually change that answer and say, hey, that was not really good. This is probably the most important component of Rhea and where we really started, which was how do we make it where the AI, which gets a lot of things wrong, as Paul mentioned earlier, smarter and better? Well, you get the human to manage it, to train it. Now, this perspective is actually the customer's perspective. I'm the customer, and I'm actually going directly to the customer portal of Ideal, and I'm asking the same question. So you'll see, obviously, the expected behaviors, I'm going to get the same answer. It's obviously in a different form factor. This is a live chat. It might have a different, it has limited capabilities. Obviously, we're not asking the customer to train the AI, but they have a very nice, familiar live chat interface. And then they can also continue to ask questions. So I'm just going to show you and demonstrate how they could go through a series of questions and get answers. Because what we're going to do is we're going to toggle back to the support agent, and we're going to take a completely different view. So earlier we saw the support agent using it for their own personal use, asking the AI, hey, answer this question for me. Now, as we toggle back over, we're going to show you how the support agent can actually oversee and look at the conversation that this customer had directly with the AI. And so, we call this admin mode, but essentially it's now I'm managing as the support agent the AI and the conversation it has with customers. And we call this human in the loop. And this is something that you want to definitely earmark in your, because human in the loop is another very critical component of our platform, and also very critical when you're actually deploying this within your business, because you want to have somebody who's monitoring and managing this. So now what I did as the AI, or as the support agent, is I logged into the AI, and now I'm actually viewing the conversation it had with the customer. And in this case, I looked at the answer and I said, you know what, actually, this answer is not accurate. There's a few steps that we no longer have to do. So I gave it a thumbs down, make it super easy for the AI, for the support agent to monitor the AI and also correct it. And I simply just cut and paste it, and I took out the 2 steps that are no longer relevant. And what this is called in the technical world is human feedback. And this is how AI goes from 85, 90% accurate to 99% accurate. And that's ultimately the last mile if anybody has ever used AI, and super critical to achieve. So that's case study 1. And that just showed you again how Rhea can be a go-between, but also a very great resource for 2 very critical roles, right? Customers who need instant support 24/7, and of course the customer support people themselves who may not be familiar on how to answer something can always lean on the AI to get that answer out quicker. So let's talk about the second use case, sales. Let's drive some revenue. So when we're talking about driving revenue, it's actually very similar to what we just discussed. Support, sales, it's still using the same basic architecture. Rhea is acting as a go-between. But in this case, what makes it very unique is, as the prior use case was the human actually engaging with the AI and asking it to help it. In this case with sales, as we all know, it's more outbound. So in this AI agent, it's been trained to do outreach. So it's going to actually send a text message to start the conversation with a prospect who signed up on our website, go through a conversation of qualifying that prospect, and then summarizing that and giving it back to the sales agent. And it could pump that right into a Salesforce or into a HubSpot or into a CRM and go into your normal flow of business. But it could also text the sales representative, or if the sales representative wants to log into Copilot, even through a mobile device, they can also act as a human in the loop. So if they want to take over that conversation because it's a hot lead, they can certainly do that. Or they could just go and use their existing systems and never even know that this AI exists. And this is one of the beautiful things I think about Rhea and how we kind of approached it, is that we understand businesses already have systems. Nobody wants to log on to another application. And in an ideal world, AI lives in the background and performs tasks that saves everybody time and money. But the reality is that you still want to have some visibility, and there are use cases that do benefit from that. So let's go ahead and get started with the sales presentation. So on the right side, all you're really seeing is a mobile phone. So the AI just texted me. So I'm acting as the customer in this case. So I just got a text from the AI because I filled out a form on a website looking for more information. And so now I'm typing as a customer. Yeah, I'm thinking, just as if this was a human texting me. And what's beautiful about this is if you have 100 leads, 1,000 leads, or 5,000 leads, this AI can scale and service all of those leads, qualify them. It can be trained and instructed to ask certain questions and guide that prospect down the path until it's ready or until they're qualified to talk to a sales rep. And in fact, inside of this AI agent, you can also put in things like look for sentiment, score this conversation from 1 to 10, 10 being likely to actually want to see a demo, 1 being not interested at all. And you can put those kind of cadences and instructions baked into the AI, just like as if you were to train a BDR or an inside sales rep that you just hired. It's no different. But again, I want to emphasize this is really empowering the sales rep to do more with their time, to focus on qualified leads and to drive more revenue. This is about 10xing your employees. This is not about replacement. This is about augmentation and empowering an AI to do some of the tasks that you want to be done at scale. And so in this case, also, I'm showcasing that the AI agent is not restricted to a live chat experience or what we consider a ChatGPT experience. This is being done over SMS. And it could also be done in a very similar fashion over email. And there's no additional work there. Once you train the AI, it can talk through SMS, it can talk through email. It's already pre-given all these things. Now what I'm doing is I'm toggling over as the actual sales rep if they wanted to, and they can actually see the conversation. Now, of course, in most use cases, I've actually taken this conversation and I put it into the notes, into the CRM. So that way, if they're logging onto the CRM, they would see the same thing. But let's just say the sales rep wanted to also get involved and be a human in the loop and say, you know what, I want to change this answer. I want to tell the AI, hey, next time, answer it differently. That link is no longer valid. Or if they ask the question about this feature, actually answer it a little bit differently. So again, you actually have your experts, the people that are actually doing the job, training the AI at scale, which is only going to get that reliability that you require in order for you to scale. So the third component is operations. And so in this case, we're taking a use case which was actually inspired by Scott. And so Scott, as a knowledge worker and as somebody who's managing, many, many different people that ask very, very difficult questions on a daily basis, wants to make sure that he services his constituents and his team. But at the same time, that's why we have an intranet. So imagine AI kind of being the new intranet. Instead of having to kind of navigate through 60 PDFs, 30 Excel spreadsheets to the point where you're frustrated and you end up basically interrupting Scott while he's making music using AI, which seems like this full-time job.
Exactly.
Now you can actually go and talk to the AI and say, and ask it the question about a financial policy, or imagine this in HR or in training or in policies around IT. I mean, this is really kind of your knowledge worker at scale. So in this case, I'm showing two scenarios. I spun up an AI agent, which I'm now interfacing through our Copilot. And I've trained this to understand Constellation software. So for me to understand the businesses that are within Constellation software. So in this case, I'm going to use this as a way to find somebody within Constellation software that I want to connect with. So I ask it if for Cindy Bell's email. Now, what I want to showcase here is this AI has not been trained on Cindy Bell or her email yet. So what I'm showcasing here is how I, as a user, as a business user, can easily upload a document and say, oh, you know what? I totally forgot. I didn't train you on this. Let me upload you the list of people that attended today's webinar. And then now I'm going to ask you questions and get more information. So this is just showing you how a user can train their own personal assistant. This is an AI agent that is specifically for my use, not shared with anybody else, but it's trained on data that's specific to CSI. So unlike ChatGPT or some of these other tools that Paul kind of showed us, those are trained on the general internet, but they have no idea of what is in your world inside of the firewall at CSI. So what you're seeing here is now that I've trained it, it actually gave me Cindy's email. And then it's asking me, do you want me to add this to a permanent training? So do you want to reference this document beyond this chat? Do you want to reference this next Tuesday or Tuesdays after that? Or is this just now? And so I said, yes, I want you to remember this because I want to reflect on this. And then I asked a very AI question. Is there a Michelle that works at Obix? Now, this is a very difficult query for any database to come back with, but AI does such a great job of contextual search. It easily found that there was a Michelle Bosher at Obix and gave me the title. And then I asked what her LinkedIn is. Of course, I've trained the AI to understand all this. Now, whether it got this information from that PDF I uploaded, or from a CRM that I hooked into, or from a spreadsheet that I have inside of my Teams, whatever we are looking to train this AI on, you can train it, and it can be your own personal assistant. And this is what makes it very special. I always think of ChatGPT as kind of the entry point that everybody found AI to be this fascinating place. But where it actually helps us in our day-to-day work is where we can actually use it for our own personal use case behind a security that we trust. So everything you're seeing here is trained on the OpenAI enterprise, the same engine that drives ChatGPT, but it's secure. It's not being shared with the general public. It's not being trained on for the general ChatGPT. This is all internal. And so now what I did is I showed you how I easily toggled over to a completely different agent. So now we're getting into the conversation about how AI is not just one agent. It's literally going to be hundreds of agents within Constellation, maybe thousands. Individual agents that you individually deploy, or ones that we've denoted, and like in this case, Scott has built out this ACC AI to deploy out to 60, 70, 80 comptrollers or financial analysts or whoever might need to use this, that can ask questions about CSI's financial policies. And Scott, as the overseer of this AI, can continually update it and know with confidence that anybody who asks a question is going to get a relatively good answer because it's been trained on. And of course, Scott can also dial in the human on the loop and change any answers by giving it a thumbs up or commenting and so forth. So again, another way to use AI, either for personal use or create an agent, train it on a specific thing, and then share it with your colleagues. Maybe you only want to share it with 3 of your team members. You don't have to share it with everybody. And this is the nuance that's very important when you're starting to talk about AI being used in the corporate scenario. And then final demo that I want to showcase is more on the creative side. So AI, especially generative AI, does 2 things very, very well: conversation and creativity, right? And I've kind of really focused on conversation for those 3 use cases. We trained an AI on a variety of different things, and it had conversations with people, different user roles. In this case, I'm coming in as the marketing person, and I want to generate content. And we saw a lot of great demos that Paul outlined, and obviously still getting over what Scott did. But creativity is a great way that generative AI can play a role. Now, if I'm on the marketing side, what am I trying to do? I'm actually more interested in building out articles or blogs, or I want to build out a newsletter, right? Not too dissimilar to how you built songs or everything else you've seen today. So in this use case, I spun up an agent, right? And this could be shared again with the marketing team, or it could be my own agent. But I've trained it to understand my voice, my cadence, and what I want to do. And I can just simply talk to it as if it was a human. Hey, write me a blog, give me 10 reasons why AI platform, blah, blah, blah. And it has a conversation just as if I was on a conference call with my marketing team about writing up some blogs. And so it comes back and asks me a couple questions. It wants to give me some context, and I give it a little bit more of an answer. And again, once I'm done, I say, all right, you have enough to go to work, go to work. Now, this could also be very easily automated. You could easily tell the AI on a daily basis, write me a blog. Here are the keyword phrases. Here are the topics. Use these RSS feeds as sources to inspire you. And of course, all this can be automated. In fact, almost everything that I've showed today could be completely automated. And just on exception, on the edge cases, a human has to get involved. But human in the loop is always a practical way to start, because what it allows you to do is understand what's capable of, to refine it, to give it feedback. And just like anything else, I can give it feedback. I can say, hey, I didn't like that answer. Next time, answer in a different manner. But once I'm done, you'll see here, it says, hey, no problem. Give me a few minutes. I'll go write the blog for you. So unlike the first 3 use cases, which was very real time, this is a great example of how AI can just go to work, right? So this is where you give it instructions. And of course, it's going to take time. It's got to go write the blog. It's got to go generate an image. Then it's got to upload it to the website. And really the end game here, the endpoint here is I'm actually going to toggle over. We actually use Webflow for our website, but you could use WordPress. You could use any content management system. And I'm going to show you that there, lo and behold, it generated the website or the blog for me. It automatically, because it's integrated, which is another key component of Rhea, is integration into your existing third-party apps, just like I showed earlier with CRM systems and the support systems. It uploaded the blog in here as a draft. So I'm, again, human in the loop. I'm kind of looking at what it did, and I said, you know what, this looks good. And I move on. Or I could change it, or I can edit it. And then I could even toggle back and give it feedback. Hey, that last blog you wrote, it didn't pass the mustard, make it longer, or make it more readable, whatever it might be. And of course, the ultimate goal here is it publishes the blog, on the website. So I think when you look at AI and AI agents, what we typically present to companies and kind of talk through is you want to outline what use cases can you see conversation and creativity playing a role, right? Where can you see gaps in your business where either you're understaffed, you don't have the capacity, or you're looking to reduce cost, or you're trying to find ways to automate things that you in your mind go, yeah, I'm sure AI could probably do at least a piece of that task or that role. But more importantly, another way to look at it, which is kind of what obviously our vision is that empowering your employees to have access to a tool that is simple to use, that is scalable, that can be used, like I showed today, 4 different use cases, all the same architecture, but very unique use cases. In some cases, outreaching to people that don't even work at the company, some cases building out an AI agent specifically for one small task, but can help 10, 20, 30 people optimize their role. but more importantly, empowering your employee to be able to use AI to make their job, and do more with and enhance and expand their capability, right? So obviously, as a company, and as part of the Constellation family, we're happy to, just as a consultative perspective, if you have any interest in learning more about it, obviously you can reach out to us. Feel free to email us, or you can scan this QR code to, learn more. But, I would say if you're asking yourself one of these 5 questions, it would be worth a time to set up an appointment with one of our experts like Lee and Elliot. And if you're looking to automate sales activities, a lot of like that example of the user role that I just did with, looking at making sure that you have 24/7 response and that you can get your sales team on the phone, closing more deals, or even expanding that opportunity to your customers as well. Whether it's support, like what we showed with Ideal, being able to really elevate their support capability to a much more fluid, much more human feeling support experience for their customers, instead of the old support chat, which is, quite honestly, everybody knows is very, very lame, and everybody's frustrating to the point where they don't even use it. So we want to advance and try to elevate support into being much more AI powered. Or if you're just looking for ways to improve your team, project management, communication, collaboration, AI does such a great job. And some of the use cases I didn't show today, which is one of my favorite things I do with AI, is I record meetings, and at the end, the AI agent summarizes that meeting and sends it out to the team with next steps and tasks. And it just does that on its own. We don't have to sit there and try to figure out, oh, what did we talk about? What's the next step? And we can share that with the customer even. So again, collaborative tools, AI dominates in that world. And of course, if you want to expand this out to your team and give them empowerment, Rhea was built specifically for that. In fact, we could train your team and show your team how they could spin up agents to do tasks that are very, very simple. Again, getting that ChatGPT experience, but within a safe environment that is that can be secured and monitored by your management, by your for anybody who wants to oversee that. And then finally, I know that we're all in the vertical software business, and I know that's a very big, earmarked thing in our mind, is how do we as companies take our products to the next level? And I'm sure many of you have already dabbled in AI and figured out a way to potentially integrate AI into your products. But, being part of building out vertical software companies myself and helping other vertical software companies understand how AI can be used within their products, happy to answer any questions about that, to deliver extend this value, not just in using it internally, but extend it to your customers. Because obviously, to be competitive in this landscape in the next 4, 5, 6 years, if we don't have AI as part of our products that we're delivering to our customers, we will fall behind, and we will see, obviously a lot of pressure on staying compelling and staying competitive. And that concludes my pitch. I do not have a fancy song to end this, but I'm going to let Scott take over and
Well, yeah, look, Rich, this is great. I'm just going to share a couple of examples of the agents which impacted us and at head office, and how we're looking at this. Rich talked about finance. Again, for everybody in finance, we've got an accounting policy manual with 1,000 pages. Rich was able to spin up an agent very, very quickly, which we could train on this 1,000 policies. So you can imagine if you're a new employee at Constellation in finance and you have a question, right now you go onto our site and you're left with 1,000 pages. But when you have an AI agent there who can actually direct you and help you find the right answer, it works very, very well. We have tested this out a bunch, and the feedback coming back is extremely positive. Now, this has expanded. Ali, who also works at head office in tax, has taken these huge PDFs that try to simplify the Income Tax Act, let's say in Canada or the United States or whatever it may be, putting that into the agent, as well as a guide from, let's say, one of the big four, which goes through a whole bunch of Q&A. That's been put in. We've been talking with Farley, for example, about M&A, about getting investment memos and things like that. Imagine, being able to put in and say, when's the last time Constellation acquired a business in healthcare, let's say in Germany, and poof, out comes an answer. Here's another one, which I'm bet you that a huge percentage of the folks could relate to, is imagine if we had an AI agent that could answer questions on computer share. Many people have frustrations with respect to computer share, especially people at computer share not necessarily knowing the ins and outs of Constellation. Imagine if we could put an agent together with all of the common Q&A that we get on ComputerShare, putting that into our own agent and being able to direct employees on that. Like that's just, again, to me, that is like just like low-hanging fruit on how you can leverage AI agents. And again, one of the things actually we're not that good at Constellation is disseminating information down several layers into the organization. Again, another good example, best practices. What's a maintenance ratio? What's a PS ratio? Whatever it may be. Imagine again, if you'd say, look, I just brought in this acquisition. Yes, we're going to go through our in-person training. That's still going to be part of it. But here's an AI agent that's going to help you get an understanding that you can kind of learn on your own on best practices within Constellation or Volaris or whatever it may be. You're still going to have your training, your summit in 2 weeks or whatever it may be. But to have that agent there with them at the beginning and then there with them after the fact as well, like it is just, again, to me, it is just low-hanging fruit. And it'd be one thing if this stuff took long time to work up. It doesn't. It actually doesn't take that long. And Rich has a licensing model that works for Constellation. A lot of these other models out there are based on headcount, on how many people access it. That's not the license model that Rich uses. It's more based on an agent basis. So it's a model that actually works very well within Constellation. So again, as Rich had said, I would, at a minimum, I would encourage Rich, because again, every time I talk to Rich, he starts to come back at me with other use cases. He's, again, a good example here is he said, well, what if you're working on an acquisition and you have their accounting policies? Could you actually throw those accounting policies into the AI agent, have it cross compare against CSI and come back with the differences? Rich, who's not even an accountant, suggested that to me. And it's like that's a great idea in terms of, and that's just, again, one example. So, with both Paul and Rich, reach out to them because they're going to share stuff with you. Again, I mentioned every time I email Paul, he comes back with 25% more that I never even thought of. That's the same thing with Rich, is they'll come back with you with stuff you've never even thought of before. So definitely, reach out to these guys to get their perspective on how some of this stuff can help you. So now we're going to go back to our songs here to have a little bit of fun, and then we're going to go into Q&A. So we're going to do Q&A. So let me just share my screen again. And what I'm going to start with here is I'm going to start with how the song was created. So again, how did a technical accountant with pretty much zero music skill create two, I'd like to say, fairly decent songs? I think those songs are actually pretty good. Well, what it starts with is you start with Copilot, and I'm using Constellation software here now as an example to say, could you please write a song about the software company Constellation Software Inc.? And what it does, again, it's looking to the internet now, and it puts together, verse 1, verse 2, the chorus, blah, 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 on Constellation software. So now what I'm going to do is cut or copy all of those lyrics that it put together. And I'm going to go into one of these song generators and saying, okay, I have lyrics, and dumping the lyrics directly into the model. And then what I'm going to do is pick the name. I'm going to just call it Constellation Software to keep it simple. You can actually pick the voice that you want as well, and you're done. All you have to do is hit render there at the bottom, and it's going to put together a song. And again, you can pick genres and all that other sort of stuff. So what I'm going to show once we're done, I'm going to take us out with a song about Constellation software. And for all of my friends in Europe, and I've got lots of them, for all the friends in Europe, we're going European Dance Club. I figured I got to pick something like a little bit out there. We went a little bit traditional with Rich, a little bit traditional with Paul. Said, you know what? For Constellation, let's go a little bit further out there in terms of genres. So it'll be European Dance Club. But before we get there, I'm going to open it up for questions. We've been getting questions coming through. So I'm actually just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And I'm going to go into the Q&A box. And let's just see here. So we got a bunch in the Q&A box. So Rich, I think the first one is for you. It says, how does Rhea compare with Alexandria? I don't know if you know what Alexandria is or not, but that was one of the questions that had come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I saw a few different, questions, and I think I could I'll just answer that because I saw a few other questions around
how does
it compare with this, how does it compare with that. I think the best way to kind of outline um, different ways to look at AI, kind of how, as I mentioned earlier, is, for example, another person asked, how is it different from intercom or something like that? So I think there's three things you have to kind of look at. And honestly, and I didn't make this clear in the beginning of my presentation, you're probably gonna have to go down all three paths. It's not like we're not going to use ChatGPT, or we're not going to use some add-on that Microsoft adds to their products for writing code or for expanding to PowerPoint or whatever it might be. And of course, you're going to use AI agents. So they're all three different tools for different jobs, right? Not everything is a nail, and not everything being sold as a hammer. So when you kind of take the first approach, which is what we always do, is like, what's the use case that you're trying to really, what's the use case you're trying to solve, right? So if you're just saying, I need something to quickly, I can toggle over that can write up emails real quick, and then I can, or draft or summarize a document or do something very, very, very quick, you could certainly build an AI agent that does that, but you could also toggle into ChatGPT. But then if you say, well, actually, the stuff that I'm putting in here, I don't want to share and be trained on because it breaks policy, well, then you can't use ChatGPT anymore. You can still use an AI agent because it falls under a completely different thing where it's not trained on that data and it's private. But certainly that's one level of caution that obviously Paul mentioned, which is whatever tool you're using, understand that tool is most likely, unless they say you tell otherwise, they're probably going to use whatever you're putting in there for training. And it may not be a concern if it's just something non-consequential, but it might be a concern if you're putting, for example, if you're putting documents on an M&A deal that we're doing, and that you feel like, oh, that those documents are under an NDA because they might have finances. Well, then probably not a smart thing to put it into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze the P&L of a company, right? So these are things you just have to be cautious of. As far as like I don't know what, I'm not really familiar with the Alexandria, but I guess I'm guessing it's probably I don't really know too much about it. I guess it says sentiment analysis. So my guess is that just by a cursory overview, it's basically looking at information or text and telling you whether that text of that person is angry or sad. Most models do a very good job of this, even OpenAI model, which is what we use. So just to be clear, ChatGPT is driven by an engine, models that are built by OpenAI. We are an enterprise license to that, which ensures encryption, security, SOC compliance, and all that. But it means that your stuff is not shared or not used to train the model. It's like its own firewall. But that model in itself is very good at image creation, text creation, anything around generative AI, including sentiment. So in case, for example, I mentioned this earlier in my sales presentation, but when we look at a conversation, we can score it based on sentiment. So a lot of these models pretty much do everything. There are submodels, people that kind of focus on certain things, like you've heard of 11 Labs, which focuses on creating voice, Suno, which is creating music, or maybe Alexandria does some sentiment stuff. But overall, the short answer is AI agents are the ones that where you're going to really want to integrate into your business and be the go-between, right? Everything else to me, honestly, is either a tool or a part of that ecosystem that allows those AI agents to perform at a high capacity.
Yeah. Here's one for you, Paul. You talked a little bit about ethical concerns. How do you think AI is going to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you think we should be thinking about ethical concerns in terms of like privacy of our data and all that sort of stuff? How do you think that's going to evolve over the next few years?
One of the things I've learned in the past 3 years is that kind of predicting even the next 2 years, it's quite difficult, and kind of trying to come up with scenarios of what will happen and how this technology will evolve. It's quite difficult and quite inaccurate. However, I do think that this technology, having this capability to become like a general purpose technology, will be embedded in our lives and kind of in our workflows quite meaningfully. And we will have quite often ethical and quite important considerations. Some of the things to consider when it comes to data privacy, again, coming back to my initial recommendations, make sure that you always know where you're putting your data into. You read the fine print, you make sure that wherever you input your data, it's safe and won't be shared with anyone else, or there aren't risks of losing your data. On the ethical side, one of the interesting things to consider is the biases of these models. Recently, there has been an interesting study between the OpenAI model, which is obviously built and trained in US, and the Mistral model, which is built and trained in the European Union. And this research lab did an analysis to see how these models answer, or what is their opinion in regards to different things which are culturally specific to Europe and US. And as you can expect, the OpenAI model was quite biased for the kind of the way of thinking from US, and the Mistral model from Europe was kind of biased towards the European Union and kind of that way of thinking. So I think as we go further, there is, as a society, we will have to face this challenge of how do we use these models globally when they are being trained and biased kind of in a specific region. And a lot of people think that these biases come from the training data, but actually it's kind of human induced in the alignment phase of the model. And one last thing on this topic, we're seeing now startups using AI to build romantic companions, or using AI to build a digital avatar of someone, and when he or she passes away, you can interact with it. So some really scary things, which I think have huge implications in terms of ethical psychology and so on. And I really think that we as a society need to figure these things out as this technology evolves.
One follow-up question for you. We're getting a few questions on security concerns in terms of using ChatGPT, Emma, Copilot, all that other sort of stuff. I know at head office, for example, we actually have a license for Copilot. Maybe just talk a little bit about, one of I think your opening slides was you can only share your data once, because once it's out for good. What are some of the issues, maybe let's say, or security ring fences you have in order to try and limit down the security issues associated with some of these public models?
Yeah, I think using Microsoft's Copilot is a bit like using SharePoint. So when you put something in SharePoint, your data is at Microsoft. It's in their data centers. And Microsoft offers quite similar privacy and kind of security promises with Microsoft Copilot as it does with some other cloud services that they have, like SharePoint and so on. So I think using Microsoft Copilot is one of the safest alternatives for out-of-the-box solutions. If you have super highly sensitive data that cannot go to someone else's cloud, I think a really good approach is to look for a private deployment for one of these LLMs. Obviously, that's going to be more expensive, but in case you're using like government data or some healthcare data which cannot be shared with an external cloud provider, take a look at private deployments. They are available, even the big players are offering them, but at a higher cost. And when it comes to ChatGPT, it's a bit weird. Normally, kind of the phrase is, if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. Yeah. What's weird with ChatGPT is that even if you pay for the product, like if you buy the premium package, the plus package, the plus license, they state that they can still use your data for retraining. So you are the product and you still pay for the product. However, if you use ChatGPT Teams or Enterprise, for those, they have clear promises and statements that they won't use your data for retraining or anything else. So it's a bit weird with ChatGPT. Make sure that you read the fine print. Again, Microsoft, I would trust it a bit more. Yeah, and in general, my recommendation is avoid sharing sensitive information in these systems unless you're super sure of the security levels you're getting. So in the examples I shared with kind of the leadership coach, I was anonymizing the person. I wasn't giving the person a name. I would say, let's call him John, or things like that. So you can, yeah.
Now, Rich, here's a question for you. I know we've had these conversations. I created a logo, created a song. There's been questions coming up about using these models to program. Maybe just give some perspective on any copyright issues. This is another area that is emerging. I don't think there's any black and white answers at this point, but maybe just give some perspective of copyright, whether you're potentially using AI for programming, whether you're using it to generate logos, generate songs, generate anything. Should people be concerned about and again, you got people from all over the world who are listening, so this is probably a jurisdiction by jurisdiction issue. So
Sure.
we're not going to be able to give some definitive answer, but maybe just talk a little bit about
Yeah.
copyright.
Yeah, so the best way to kind of describe where we are today when it comes to copyright is there's really two issues, right? That people are trying to evaluate and try to understand if it does actually violate, or at least the principles of what copyright is, right? You have what's called training, which is where companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they go out to the internet and they grab a bunch of information, of which a lot of it is copyrighted, and they train their model on that. Much like how a human, if I read a Hemingway book, I'm kind of training my brain. So if I go out and write a book and you can see kind of I was influenced from Ernest Hemingway, is that copyright infringement? And so the AI companies are making the argument, well, I'm just training on this data. I'm not selling or turning around and copying it. I'm just training on it. So that's one piece of legislation that's yet to drop, which is, what does it mean to train on AI? Now, OpenAI has kind of taken the leadership role in going out and signing licensing deals with a lot of businesses that they are getting information from, like newspaper companies, Reddit. Obviously those are, GitHub and all these other components where they're getting a lot of this information. So they are kind of taking this kind of proactive approach. The other part of AI, which is probably where it's more relevant, is inference. So inference is just really a fancy term of saying what the AI is actually giving you. What is it actually delivering you? Like, AKA the logo that you generated, the songs you generated. So it was trained on millions and millions of songs to create those beautiful songs that you did for us. But somebody could say, hey, man, that Rich song, sounded exactly like the country song I wrote 3 months ago. And you could probably get a letter in the mail saying, hey, man, you that sounds too much like my song. And you don't even know it. You're just kind of playing around. Now, obviously, that would only happen if you try to turn around and sell it or kind of put it to commercial use. But yes, there is a non-zero chance that AI could magically produce something that somebody could argue, oh, well, that's already pre-existing work. Now, a lot of these companies, and to some degree they're a black box, have taken extraordinary, or they claim to have taken extraordinary leaps in protecting from that. So, for example, a great use case would be if you go on ChatGPT right now and say, generate an image of Michael Jordan. It won't do it. It just won't. It'll or give me the Nike, put the Nike logo on this. It won't do it. So they are trying to kind of cut it off at the pass but companies like Twitter or XAI for that matter doesn't care. They'll do it all day long. So that's more of a free speech thing. He said his point of view is, hey, if you want an image of somebody, even though they're famous, I'll do it. I don't care, because it's art, right? So I do think it comes down to, and one of the best questions I saw on the thread today was, if I use AI to generate code, and then I put that code into my product, and then obviously that's going to become commercially viable, I'm going to sell that product. That is a very interesting, unique case, which I do think it probably deserves a double click. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but I can tell you that's probably right where we are today. That's a great question that we're not sure. The answer is like, well, maybe it is, but not really. It's not, because the AI generated it, but maybe there's a line of code in there that came from software that was written by Google and is copyrighted, but who's going to, there's no way to track that back. So another great analogy I would use is, AI is once it's trained, and once that basically takes all that information and creates that kind of obtuse vector database, there's no real way to understand where it came from. It's almost like, it's like breaking a piece of glass and trying to put it back together. So even if there was a law that came out, which is where it comes to education and understanding how you would even enforce this, and somebody claimed that that piece of code came from Google, would be impossible to prove. However, if your song sounds like another song, then it would fall under the normal copyright world. Whether it came from AI or not, you would be subject to the existing law. So I would defer to that. Like, if whatever you're producing you believe is going to violate the current law, well, then you should probably go and make sure it doesn't, right? Do a search, or make sure that, if you create a logo off AI and it looks like the Nike swoosh, and you put it out there and say, oh, the AI produced it. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter who produced it. Your marketing team could have produced it. it's still, I would always defer back to the current law, but it's still early days. I mean, who knows what's going to happen?
Agreed. Paul, I'm going to pass this one over to over to you. You know, we talked a little bit, and I've asked you a similar question to this. Is, you know, you have people who are listening saying, okay, what should I do next? What AI course or how do I get up the curve on AI? Do I, you know, do I go on YouTube? Do I, because what I've found is that the quality of what we're getting is not great. I've asked people to come in and present on AI, and it just hasn't been what I expected until I watched that masterclass. So what your perspective in terms of, you know, how would you approach AI in terms of trying to supplement your skill set? Or, because again, you've got people on the line that are, let's say, programmers, they might be in marketing, might be in finance, whatever it may be. How would you suggest they get up the curve on AI in terms of next steps?
Yeah, I think it varies a bit based on your kind of your role. If you don't have a technical background and you just want to get up to speed to see how you can integrate this into your process, into your work, I think the best way to get a sense of what this can and cannot do is to just start using it. And like, I have kind of two suggestions for this. Try a wide enough set of problems or prompts, and see how it performs on those. You're going to see that on some it performs quite well, on some it doesn't work that well. And kind of the second recommendation is, if something doesn't work as you expect, or doesn't work at all, try again in 6 months. There are so many examples that 6 months ago were not working. These models were not capable of answering those. And now they perform quite well on those. So I think that's a kind of starting point. And just give it a try, see what you're getting back, and spend time with it. I think in the masterclass that Scott, that you were referring, one of the advices there was spend at least 10 hours with these tools. So prompt, try to get answers, 10 hours, that's kind of enough time for you to have a sense of what these tools can and cannot do. The masterclass that you recommended, I think it's a great piece of content, especially for non-technical and for kind of those which are just getting started and want to get a sense of what this is. And indeed, it's quite hard to disseminate. There is a lot of below average content on AI and kind of a lot of consultants which are trying to kind of sell you a lot of things on related to AI. Again, the prompting guide, kind of the guides from the big companies are a good starting point. They're free and you can easily check if it's not to your standard, at least you didn't pay anything for it. And Claude has some guides, OpenAI has some guides on this as well. Those would be some good starting points as well. On YouTube, it can be a bit hit or miss. There are some great pieces of content like the Tree Blue. I'm going to look for the channel. There is a really good channel which kind of explains how all of this works. Maybe, Scott, we can send at one point a set of a curated list of resources, like free resources that people can access. I don't have them all top of my head, but I think that could be a really good.
Well, I love the prompting guide. I love the prompting guide that you shared, Paul, because I think you think to yourself, oh man, I've got AI Copilot. Man, this is cool. But if you don't know how to speak to the Copilot and tell it what to do, it's not going to be anywhere close to as effective as if you have a prompting guide beside you, because in that prompting guide, there's a whole list of, depending on your role, will drive how you plan on interacting and how you prompt that Copilot in order to get good answers. Would that be fair?
Yep. And even like in some cases, there are some studies which show that if you prompt it by saying, my job depends on the quality of this answer. So LLMs are really, really weird in how they work. Sometimes, like just by adding in your prompt the fact that my job depends on this leads to slightly better results. So we're still in this process of trying to understand how these models actually work and how we can optimize them. My expectation is that soon, currently these tools are quite raw. Soon they will transform into either agents or products that are going to be guardrailed and are going to be optimized for you. At the moment, it's a lot of trial and error. You try different prompts, but it's kind of a raw way of interacting with these models. But yeah, indeed, the YouTube channel, thank you, Alex, 3 Blue 1 Brown. It's a great YouTube channel, especially if you're interested kind of in the technicalities of how these systems works. And they have great content on other topics as well, mathematics and so on. Especially for the engineers out there, I highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, we'll have to. I think that's a great idea, Paul. What I will do is we'll put together these resources and I will get them up on the ACC site. So we're going to have a copy of the recording up there on the ACC site, and we'll also put a list of good resources as well as contact information for everybody. So I'm going to cut it off there. We're already 30 minutes over. Again, I knew we wouldn't be able to get through this, but again, I hope people have gotten a lot out of this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take us out. Two things actually I'm going to do. So I'm going to share my screen first. I'm going to share the contact information. So again, if we go back to the objectives, getting to know Rich and getting to know Paul, very, very important in my mind. Hopefully these are global experts on AI that we're lucky enough, frankly, to have within Constellation. And I would highly recommend you reach out to both of them and have a chat. And I will take us out on a song about Constellation, taking out a song on Constellation software, European Dance Club version. Thank you everybody for joining. I hope everybody had a good session, and we'll go out on European Dance Club. And like I said, if you have any questions, please reach out to the experts. But thanks to everybody for joining, and enjoy this final song about Constellation.
In the world of tech, there's a shining star. Constellation software reaching far. From enterprise solutions to niche domains, they're driving innovation, breaking chains. Constellation lighting up the sky with software solutions, they reach so high. Empowering businesses, making dreams come true. Constellation software, we're singing for you. Acquisitions and growth, they never slow, bringing together talents, making it glow. From healthcare to finance and everything between, Constellation's vision is clear and keen. Constellation lighting up the sky with software solutions, they reach so high. Empowering businesses, making dreams come true. Constellation software, we're singing for you. Innovation at the core, they lead the way. With passion and drive, they seize the day. Global impact, a legacy so bright. Constellation software shining through the night. Constellation lighting up the sky with software solutions, they reach so high. Empowering businesses, making dreams come true. Constellation software, we're singing for you. Constellation lighting up the sky with software solutions, they reach so high. Empowering businesses, making dreams come true. Constellation software, we're singing for you. Hey!
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks again for joining. And again, reach out to Paul and Rich, and again, enjoy the rest of your day. But thanks to everybody for joining the session today.
Thank you, Scott, for putting this together.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it, buddy.